Hi, Liana from Murlo. Welcome to Designing a Round Yoke Sweater Lesson 2. In today's lesson, you're going to be calculating the number of stitches and the number of rows, increases, decreases that you're going to be doing for the body of the sweater. You're going to need a pencil, you're going to need a calculator, and if you head over to Murlo.ca, there's two printables. One is going to be the pattern page and the other one is the calculation page. We're going to be working with those. So let's get started.
Following along on the worksheet, the first calculation you are going to be doing is right at section A. That's your bust line. For that calculation, you're going to need A times 2 times your stitch gauge. You're doing times 2 because when we measured across, that would be the width of the front. We need to include for the back as well. In my case, I've got 20 times 2 times my stitch gauge of 5.875. That gives me a number of 235. Because I want an even number of stitches, I'm going to adjust that, and into box 1, I'm going to place 234. B is the hemline. The hemline is 90% of box 1. So my box 1 was 234. My B, therefore, is 210.6. Because I'm going to be doing some garter here and then a color repeat, I will be putting a 16 stitch repeat above my hemline. So I need a number here that's divisible by 16. 210.6 is not divisible by 16. I will adjust it to 208 stitches to be divisible by 16. I now have my cast on number of 208. The sweater we're going to do is a cardigan. I'm going to cast on 208 stitches because that's what I need on the bottom hemline. But I'm also going to be adding 5 additional stitches, which will become the steek.
What is a steek? A steek is when we add those 5 additional stitches. So here we can see that I've got a purl stitch, 3 knit stitches, and a purl stitch. When we're doing a cardigan in the round, you're just knitting round and round and round. And then when we get the sweater complete, we cut up that center. So these stitches aren't going to impact how big your sweater is. These are going to be cut. Do not be afraid. I will get you through it.
The next calculation will go into box 3A of the worksheet. This is going to be where we take the stitches that we'll have at the bust line minus the stitches at the hem. That tells us how many stitches are we increasing. This number needs to be divisible by 4 because we will be increasing 1 stitch on either side of the seam stitch on each side of the sweater. That means there's 4 stitches being increased every increased round. Go ahead and adjust your number in 3A to be divisible by 4. Once I have my hemline done, and then the design I'm doing here, I'm going to be adjusting my numbers. So I started out with 208. I'm going to adjust it to be 210. My increases therefore need to be 234, which is what I need at the bust line, minus 210. Then divide that by 4. So I'm going to have a difference of 24 stitches divided by 4. So that means I have 6 increase rounds. So I'm going to place 6 into box 3B. Now that I know how many increase rounds I will be doing, I need to figure out from the hemline to the bust line is where those increases are going to go. So I need to figure out how many rows do I knit in between each increase round. The best thing to do is to take your H number, divide by 3. So you want the increases to fit into that first third of the sweater. My H is 15. Divide by 3, that means I have 5 inches. 5 inches times my row gauge of 8.75 is equal to 43.75 rows. So in 5 inches, I will have 43.75 rows. My hem and my color design will take 15 rows to accomplish. So if I take 43.75 rows minus the 15 rows that I've already knit, that gives me 28.75. Put that into box number 4. Box 5 is where you're going to take your box number 4 and divide it by box 3B. This is what's going to give us how many rows are knit in between each increase round. For me, my 3B number is 6. I'm doing 6 increase rounds. So I need to divide my box 4 of 28.75 by 6. That gives me a number of 4.79 rows. I can't knit 4.79 rows. I'll round it up to 5, which means I will knit 5 rounds, then do an increase round, knit 5 rounds, do an increase round, until I have gotten to the full number that we've put in box 1. That will complete from my hemline up to my bust line. That takes us right up to the beginning of the armhole, and we will have done all of our increases in the first third of the sweater. Now you can set the body of the sweater aside and we'll go on to the sleeves. Once I have the calculations complete and I've checked my math, it's time to transfer it to the sweater page. You'll see in the sweater it says cast on, and then we'll see a yellow 2 and a pink box. You're going to go to yellow 2 of the calculation page, which in my case is 208. I'm going to put 208 in that box. You'll see the same thing down here where it tells you to add in box 3B. Well, that was where we calculated the number of times that you're going to be doing an increase round. So your 3B number will go into this box. So then it will say increase 3B times every, and then box 5 is going to go in here. Go ahead and transfer over. Once you've completed that, you're ready to start knitting your sweater. When you cast on, the beginning of each round is going to be your steek area. So the beginning of your round is always going to be that first purl stitch, and then you'll do 3 knit stitches followed by a purl stitch. Continue around so that you have covered
1/4 of your cast on for your hem. And then you're going to place a marker on either side of that seam stitch. Then you're going to continue knitting around until you've knit half of those stitches, and then you're going to put a marker on either side of that seam stitch, and then finish by coming around that left front of the sweater, and you'll return to the steek. If we're doing color work, it is kind of nice to have your steek the start of your round, because when we knit around, you're basically doing a spiral, and having the steek in there means you're not going to see that you've got a color here and a color here. By the time you cut it, it's going to look like they're even. So go ahead, get your cast on done, do your hem. If you want to do a design in here, just make sure that it divides into the number of stitches you've cast on, and then you can start your increases that we calculated.
That completes lesson 2.
This is Leila from Murlo. Happy knitting.